Hi everyone, welcome to this final video around the reproduction scheme. This video is about lesson 12 on germination and plant growth. And again, not too much more to add that's not in the slides. The main thing is to firstly relate everything back to the big idea. As I've said in every single video for this scheme of work, the big idea is fertilization, and that's key to understanding how it is that organisms reproduce themselves and produce new organisms, I suppose. So come back to the big idea and show them that whole scheme of how pollen gets from one plant to another, fertilization occurs, the ovule inside the ovary, or the fertilized ovule inside the ovary develops into a seed, which is inside a fruit. And then you can say, well, okay, in the last lesson we talked about fruit. Okay, why do you think plants might make these very sweet objects that animals like to eat? And then you can share this idea that, okay, that's a way of distributing the seeds as far and wide as possible through animal droppings and so on. And therefore, that gives the seeds a good chance of growing or developing into a new plant. So you can then move into this lesson and talk about this final stage of the process by which, from being a fertilized egg, a bit like in the human gestation period, the seed develops into a new plant. One thing I would say about this lesson is it might be a bit challenging. It's tricky in these lessons because these are about plants, and yet we're only going to cover plants and photosynthesis in the next scheme of work. So there could be an argument, to be honest, for leaving this lesson until after you've covered photosynthesis and so on, because we actually use those ideas in quite a few of the lessons. Having said that, it also kind of makes sense to do this within the reproduction unit, and that's why we because we're organising it around this idea of fertilization, that's why we put these lessons together. So yeah, that's one to think about, or have a conversation with your head of department, or get in touch with me if you're not sure. But overall, it's pretty straightforward, and the slides do a good job of talking you through the main ideas that you need to get across. And that's it. We've covered. We've started from this idea of fertilization and sexual reproduction, and then we've seen how that manifests in human beings and how that manifests in plants. So in the next scheme of work after this, we'll be looking at plants in more detail, and we'll start to get into one of the biggest concepts in science, which is photosynthesis.